This is something else, it's hilarious.
Superfood is a loaded term, but when it comes to nutrient-rich protein, you can't get much better than eggs. The egg industry, however, is less than super. Battery farming, that is keeping birds permanently in cramped, overcrowded cages with no access to the outdoors, is obviously a pretty horrendous practice, but it's still responsible for about a quarter of the eggs sold in the UK. They'll be the cheapest ones in the supermarket and are labelled as barn eggs, which is a bit of a ridiculous description when you see what these so-called barns look like.
Unfortunately, eggs labelled as free range are not necessarily much better, with hens often still being kept in cramped conditions with minimal outdoor access. We won't go into all the issues with the egg industry because frankly it would take too long. We'll link a video for more details if you're interested. Needless to say, if you're looking to buy eggs that are on the more humane end of the spectrum, then the highest animal welfare standards in the UK are those of the Soil Association, so look out for this symbol on your egg boxes.
The next best would be RSPCA standards, though they could be significantly more stringent in our opinion. The USDA organic standards from the US find their way onto UK egg farms, but they are less stringent and mainly set limits on what the chickens are fed, and doesn't even guarantee free range.
Of course, as you would probably expect,
Hey.
eggs that come with higher standards also come with a much higher price tag. So if you consume animal products and care about the welfare of the animals whose products you eat, but find the high price of high welfare eggs extraordinarily high, then what's the answer?
Well, has the thought of keeping chickens ever crossed your mind, like the chicken in the classic joke setup? Then maybe this video might help you find out what's on the other side of the proverbial road. I eat a decent amount of eggs, like 4 or 5 a day, which if you're buying average priced eggs, comes out at about £500 a year. Just on eggs, just for me. Expensive habit. Which got us wondering, how possible is it for us to cover our own egg consumption habits with our own chickens, and could we save any money? Well, we're about 4 or 5 months deep in our chicken keeping journey now, so what have we learned so far? Has it been flapping excellent or clucking hell? What do you reckon? Good. We had a 2x3 metre bare patch of ground in the corner of our allotment that seemed just perfect for a small chicken operation. So we got to work researching what our setup might look like, and after much careful consideration on what would be within our budget, and realistic for the space we had to work with, we decided on a coop inside a cage set up for the maximum welfare that this space would allow. Whilst we usually try to avoid giving money to old Bezos as much as possible, unfortunately sometimes Amazon just has what you need, and we found a chicken cage that would fit the space perfectly and tall enough to stand up in. This cost £153.99. The coop we got from chickencoopsdirect.com. We got the Kent coop, which is big enough for 4 standard hens or 5 small ones. This cost £183.95. So then it was time to start building. The cage is sturdy but fiddly as f***, taking about 2 weeks with an hour here, an hour there to slowly and clumsily piece together.
This is something else, it's hilarious.
Getting the chicken wire sides on was a pretty tedious process, but with some perseverance and 1 or 2 mishaps it came together nicely. The coop in comparison was a doddle to put together, except that we wanted to add an automatic door so that we didn't need to actually be there at the crack of dawn to let them out or to put them away at dusk. This cost £25.99 from eBay, but when it arrived we discovered it was smaller than the entry, or peephole as they call it, so it required a little bit of bodging to create a new peephole to attach it to. We also bought a new feeder and water trough set for £16.99. So that was their living space built and installed for just over 380 quid. Next we needed their consumables such as food and bedding materials. These we bought in bulk online at thepoultryshopuk.co.uk.
So with everything ready to go, all we needed were some chickens.
Now, unless you want to raise chickens from an egg, which involves buying lots more equipment and having indoor space, probably in your home, dedicated to chick rearing, organising vaccinations and, well, knowing what the heck you're doing, which we don't, then really you have a couple of options. One is to rescue chickens that have passed their commercial egg-laying days and destined for the great barn in the sky. Or two, buy some chickens from a breeder.
We considered getting rescue hens because, well, it's a nice thing to do. The thing is, rescue birds can often come with some issues, both physically and socially, which you might expect from an animal that's been kept in cramped conditions with thousands of other birds its whole life. They're also arriving to you at a stage in their life when their egg laying starts to slow down. Not drastically, but they've passed their peak. One day we hope to have enough space to devote to a nice flock of rescue hens, but we only have space for 4 hens right now and we're still learning the ropes. So we decided it'd be better to just get some young'uns to start with.
We were given the phone number of a local chicken breeder by our allotment neighbour who also keeps chickens. Everything was ready to go, so time to call the breeder and grab some chickens. Well, it turns out chicken breeders don't just have chickens sat on shelves ready to go. They raise them to what is known as pullet stage, or point of lay. We had to wait another 7 weeks for the young ladies to be ready to be picked up. But when that day came, it was an egg-citing day indeed. I'm going to a farm in Suffolk, we live in Suffolk, to pick up our first ever chickens. Yeah, it is going to be a fun day. Well, it might be quite stressful. We'll soon find out. They might be not on their best behaviour. We'll see how they deal with a 40-minute car drive. We've got some boxes in the boot to put them in for the route home. Hopefully they don't cause too much commotion in the back of my car, but I'll check back in on the way back. Okay, we've picked up some chickens. They are in that box right there. I can hear them every time I turn a corner. I can hear them sliding around in the box. So bless them, they don't quite, not quite grasping. They're not quite grasping. So yeah, very cute, very calm, chilled birds. Didn't seem to be too bothered at all by being picked up. I've just had a little lesson on clipping the wings, which we're going to have to do, and that's just to try and minimise them escaping from the plot or flying out of the allotment. We're going to need to keep them in the cage for quite some time anyway, apparently, just to get them used to being in there and get used to going in and out of the coop. It might be over a month and a half to 2 months before we start letting them forage out in the allotment. So yeah, let's get them home and let them out and get them into their new house. Not talkative yet.
And then, after what was no doubt a very confusing journey for them, our 4 young ladies were in their new home, feeling cautious and wanting to snuggle in together for comfort. But it wasn't long until they were venturing out to see what was on offer, and I got to meet them for the first time.
Yeah.
They're still growing their red bits.
Don't know. They're pretty small, aren't they? I think that's called a wattle. Something like that.
So they worked out how to get their food now.
Yeah.
And not long after, they were stuffing their faces with food.
Got the hang of it. So what have we been feeding them? Well, our hens came to us about a month off laying their first eggs. We were advised by the farmer who supplied them to feed them only layers pellets until they start laying, as they need a high protein diet to get them to a healthy weight. And funnily enough, that's the same reason I eat as many eggs as I do. So for the first few weeks, that's all they get. And even now they're laying, these pellets are the staple, available to them all day long. We buy a high quality GM and soya free variety from smallholder range, which costs about £24 for 20 kilograms. Our first bag lasted 2 months, but that was basically all they ate. Once they're laying regularly, you can start adding in other foods, and now they've been lasting a great deal longer.
Aside from the pellets, you can feed chickens almost anything a human can eat, except for this pretty short list. Otherwise, it's fair game, and as with human nutrition, a more varied diet will mean healthier hens as well as more nutritious and tastier eggs. The one caveat being, if the protein content of their food drops significantly, so will their egg laying frequency. So one of the things we've started doing and adding into their diet is fermented grains.
This is a blend of corn and grains like wheat and oats that has been coarse ground, called layers meal. We chuck a load in a bucket and fill the bucket with water so it's completely submerged, and add a drop of apple cider vinegar to kickstart the fermentation. After a day or so it starts bubbling away and gives a similar fermentation to sauerkraut or kimchi, so it's packed full of protein and healthy gut microbes, and they absolutely love it. We buy 15 kilogram bags at a time of the layers meal, and as it bulks up once it's rehydrated, it goes a long way. We also let them range free across the plot several times a week for extended periods to allow them to dig and forage for grubs and leafy greens until their heart's content. So at the moment it's a bit early to know exactly what we're spending on food, but it's probably in the region of about £10 per month. Similarly with the bedding, it's a bit early to say, but probably something like £4 a month, if that.
Another early issue that popped up was chicken mites. These nasty little red bugs can easily infest your chickens, sucking their blood, draining them of energy, and opening them up to disease and potentially leading to death if not treated. So aside from cleaning out the coop every 3 days and refreshing the bedding, we've set up a dust bath made of a big plastic tub filled with dry sandy soil and diatomaceous earth, which helps cleanse them of any mites they might have on them.
We also clipped their wings before we started allowing them to roam free, which you do to discourage them from flying away. Don't worry, this is completely painless for the birds. It's like us clipping our nails. Beautiful job.
We're all done.
Well done. That's it, puff yourself up.
So how has the experience been so far, and how does it add up financially?
We spent about £370 on all their living quarters and tools and accessories we needed to get set up. The chickens themselves are a hybrid breed called Lehman Brown, bred for laying and are commonly used in commercial operations, so are really quite cheap, coming in at £12.50 each, so £50 total for our 4 ladies, bringing our setup costs to about £440.
As an estimate, we're spending something like £15 per month for consumables like food, bedding, cleaning sundries and diatomaceous earth.
At the moment, we're still getting 3 or 4 eggs a day consistently, which will probably drop off a little over the winter, so we'll probably average about 3 eggs per day over the year. This means our cost per month to keep the chickens happy and fed is around 16p per egg, which is less than 2p more than even the cheapest, most economy eggs in the supermarket, with the most expensive eggs in the supermarket being 57.5p each.
Even if we compare to the average price of around 30p per egg, we're currently halving our egg purchasing costs, and we should have made up the setup costs in about 2.5 years. As chickens can live to around 8 to 10 years on average, it's possible to more than cover your costs over their lifetime.
In terms of enjoyment, they are a lot of fun, and having them follow you around the allotment, wondering what you're up to, is super endearing. The noises they make are full of character. You can tell when they're happy to see you and when they're annoyed you haven't let them out or given them their fermented food yet. What did you say? The eggs are delicious, and feeling one more small step towards greater self-sufficiency in food production is very rewarding and empowering.
They're generally pretty easy animals to keep, but don't think that equals no work at all. They are, after all, animals that need caring for, and there's a number of things you may want to consider before cracking on and shelling out for some chickens of your own.
You need to be able to visit them every day, sometimes more than once. Eggs need to be collected daily, we give them their fermented food every day, water change every 2 days, bedding change every 3 days, and every few weeks a more thorough clean out of the coop. Annoyingly, our automatic door, which we brought so we didn't have to let them out at the crack of dawn and put them in at dusk by hand, occasionally resets, locking them in, meaning we still have to make a trip in the morning regardless to make sure the door has let them out. Whilst each visit doesn't take long, it still adds up to be quite an investment in time, especially if you don't have space in your garden like us and have to house them in elsewhere like on an allotment. The cage and coop also took lots of time to build and fox-proof with slabs that we had to source and transport. And if you want to go away for more than a couple of days, you'll need to make sure you know someone who can step in to look after them and do all of the above whilst you're away. So add hen sitting costs to your holiday budget.
Chickens love to dig, like really love to dig, more than anything else in the world it seems. So if you have them in your garden, make sure you place their run on a piece of ground you don't mind getting wrecked. And if you plan to let them out of their run to forage, don't expect your nice neat borders to stay that way for long. We've learned to protect areas and put barriers over our compost heap to stop it getting spread all over the place.
Much like goats, chickens will eat pretty much anything you plant and put in front of them. So if you have any seedlings around or delicate plants, you might want to keep them away from them too. This is also a plus though, as you can supplement their diet with weeds and cuttings.
Expect to have to deal with a lot of stinky poop. You get used to it, but there's a lot of cleaning involved, and again, you'll want to pick somewhere you don't mind getting covered in. Also though, this is another benefit ultimately because chicken poop is fantastic fertiliser. So we have a separate compost bin just for all their dirty bedding, which once broken down a bit will eventually help give us an abundance of produce and flowers from our allotment.
As with all living things, stuff sometimes goes wrong medically. Thankfully, so far the worst we've had to deal with has been mites, but there's no doubt at some point we'll have to have some more serious medical dramas to deal with, which will involve some steep learning curves and potentially having to put really sick birds down if things are beyond reasonable recovery chances. Wish us luck for when that time comes, and prepare for those eventualities yourself if you're still thinking you're interested. With all that said, is it worth it?
In our eyes, absolutely yes. They are a big pleasure to have in our lives. We can't help but wish we had our own land where most of these issues would be a lot easier to deal with, or at least a garden, so that dealing with them just means stepping out the back door. But for now, we're enjoying the learning experience, love spending time with them, and can't wait to be able to have some more space to get more hens.
Well, that's it for this one. Thanks for joining us in our little flock. Let us know if you're considering some birds of your own, and we really hope we haven't put you off. We'll be back with another travel video next, where we road trip to Ireland's wild Atlantic way, so look out for that one. Otherwise, see you next time.